Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. Good morning to those of you here in our sanctuary and also to those who are viewing us online. Welcome and thank you for being with us. My name is Jim Newtown. I'm your worship associate this morning. We are an inclusive church that welcomes everyone regardless of their income, education, or sexuality. If you are searching for a church that believes the most important things are love, quest for justice, and the use of reason, then our congregation may be right for you. We'd also like to acknowledge that we stand on the traditional lands of the Council of Three Fires and the Anishinaabe peoples, who were the indigenous inhabitants of Michigan. Our congregation supports indigenous-led organizations and grassroots change movements, and we encourage others to do as well. We also support indigenous-led campaigns in their quest to have carefully chosen lands returned to them. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, please feel free to contact one of our ministers or our office, and that contact information can be found at uuflint.org. And now a few announcements. If you are viewing us online, a Zoom coffee hour is offered with one of our ministers shortly after our service ends. Instructions and Zoom code are in your e-update and at our website, uuflint.org, near the top of the home page. Please remember our computer kiosk out in the narthex. Feel free to view our website, our YouTube channel, or look at our most recent e-update. They are all up and running on the computer, and assistance is available if you need it. After the November 30th Oxford High School shooting, you might be wondering what you can do about guns and gun safety. If you'd like to support policies to prevent gun violence in Michigan, you may sign your name to a petition online at everytown.org, or we have the website on our computer in the vestibule, and you can sign up right here after the service. Lastly, the new UU class, UU 101, for Hope, Healing, and Occasional Heresy, is January 5th and 19th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Please register with Revlynn. And now our chalice lighting. So far, we have lit Advent candles of love and hope. This week, we remember to keep joy in our hearts. In this holiday season, throughout the year to come, and always in our lives, may we be filled with joy, sharing it always with others. And now feel free to join me in reciting our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. Thank you. One of the things that I'm most proud of about our church is that we take a second Sunday collection. The second Sunday of each month, we take a special collection for a nonprofit organization, often a local nonprofit organization that helps other people outside of our church. John Straw will talk to us today about the donation this second Sunday today.
Thank you, Jim. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Sue Kinsey, Chair of the Worship Committee, and currently our acting moderator, asked me to do the plug for our second Sunday donation for Family Promise of Genesee County. I could go on and on talking about Family Promise. So I wrote out what I'm going to say to spare you. 37 of us, UUCF members, have provided meals and/or spent the night with homeless families at Court Street United Methodist Church 4 times a year for 8 years. Family Promise mission is to end homelessness, one family at a time. And their success rate is 92%. That means that over 9 out of 10 homeless families that come to Family Promise for help have succeeded in moving into their own place, apartment, whatever, and are no longer homeless. Family Promise, in addition to providing housing in 14 host churches 1 week at a time, they provide counseling, help with job searches, budgeting, transportation, etc., etc. There are also 17 support churches in this county. We are one of them, and we are supporting Court Street United Methodist by providing dinner and overnight host on Mondays and Fridays, again, the 4 weeks during the year that the people are at Court Street. The need for funds, however, this year and last year is greater than ever. As you know, we haven't been able to house families in churches during the pandemic. So Family Promise needs even more funds because every once in a while they have to put up a family in an area motel or help the family with back rent to keep them in their homes. And they also have a day center where families have been spending the night. So please be generous. Make your checks out to UUCF, and in the memo, put Family Promise. And also consider joining those of us who are currently ready to be volunteers by spending the night and providing a meal. In addition to Ruth and I, who coordinate our church's efforts, people who have done this over and over and will continue to are Sue Kinsey, Sandra Murphy, Edie Robbins, Raina Bick, John Hilsom, John Loading, Terry Cross, Gloria E.B. Buck, Jim Newtown, Harold Ford, Mary Rose Carl, Bonnie and Larry Pobosic, Ann Delaney, Deb Gustafson and Sue Weston, Dave Clement, and Ray Rust. I hope I haven't missed anyone. Many hands do make light work, and it does take a village. So far in 2021, Family Promise has helped 58 families, 387 children in some way or another. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Snowflakes. Watch for the quietness of snowflakes, knowing that love is quiet. Look for the kindness of small acts, knowing gentleness is fragile. We are grateful to know that thoughtfulness makes no sound, that compassion leaves wonderfully beautiful traces. They leave beautiful traces when we open ourselves to wonder. May ours be a religion like the snowflake, goes everywhere in quietness, in love, and with gentle regard for that which is true and beautiful in us and about us.
Stand if able. There is more Please join in a spirit of prayer and meditation. The holiday season is upon us, but this year many of us move toward it with leaden feet. It has been such a year. And because it has been such a year, it may be that we feel forced to enter into it, into the jolly spirit of Christmas, the joyful spirit of Hanukkah, the reflective spirit of solstice, the hopeful spirit of New Year's. Despite a world worn with war, lives ruled with fear, may we find peace. When loss ladens our days, or loneliness weighs heavy in our hearts, may we find peace. If despair takes hold of our souls, may we find peace. May we help those in need, gather in a place of grace, and may we always find goodness and peace. As we sit in silence today, let us reflect on the many gifts we have to offer to bring grace and peace to a troubled world. A smile, our patience, or understanding are ours to give freely. Let us all pledge ourselves to greater service in the weeks ahead. During our musical meditation today, you are invited to come forward or go to the back of the sanctuary and light a candle of joy or concern. But first, let us enjoy the silence. Amen, and blessed be.
Our presentation this morning is called Playing Scrooge. And we'll wait for the first slide here. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner.
He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his coffee in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, not wintry weather chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than him. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose, no pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him.
One more word from you, Bob Cratchit, and you will keep Christmas by losing your situation. Christmas is a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. I suppose you think you must have the whole day off. Very well, but be here all the earlier the next morning.
You are fettered, said Scrooge. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you?
There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited. I dare say, returned the nephew, Christmas among the rest. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, this is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the poor houses I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. If they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
Nobody ever stopped Scrooge in the street to say, with gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No such man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge.
Darkness was cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But tonight he wouldn't have minded a brighter lamplight. He walked the rooms to see that all was right.
Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?
It is required of every man, the ghost returned, that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turn to happiness.
There was something very awful, too, in the specter's being, provided with an internal atmosphere of its own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case, for though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated as by the hot vapor from an oven.
You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are.
You're an hallucination brought on by alcohol, Russian vodka poisoned at Chernobyl.
If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart, he should.
They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by rows of desks that were empty. At one of these, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down and wept to see his poor, forgotten self as he used to be.
Good morning. This beautiful song was written by Peter Mayer, and it reminds us that even as Lynn said this morning, when things seem like they're not going well, in the winter there is green. So even in bad times, green still exists.
Gray is on the sky, rust upon the leaves that lie, red on the last few berries clinging, brown on the branch where the bitter wind's singing, even when white obscures the scene, still in winter there waving defiant pine tree boughs, cedar needles stubborn and proud, hiding inside the seeds of sorrow, deep in the room where it sleeps under cover, but patiently waiting there unseen. In the winter there is green. Death may raise its voice today, oh, but life will have its say, speaking in lovers and in children, in poets' pens and philosophers' visions. Life is a planet's daring dream, Earth's devotion spoken in green. So keep it in your winter store, hang its garland round the door, grant to your heart its hopeful promise, fashion a wreath for its blessing upon us. Winter brings browns and grays indeed, but when it comes, remember green. Remember green. Remember green.
What? Another Christmas service about Charles Dickens and his Ebenezer Scrooge? Humbug, you might reasonably say. But wait. Yes, this is another holiday time service about Dickens and his Scrooge, and I think that's very reasonable. Even in its day, the book A Christmas Carol, subtitled Being a Ghost Story of Christmas, was hailed by many as a new gospel. Some would note that it is a bit odd, as it never mentions the name Jesus. We might naturally ask, how does it have anything to do with helping people celebrate the Mass of Christ that we call Christmas? The explanation is a sad, happy, triumphant Christmas story, guaranteed to kindle the true spirit of Christmas, just as Dickens intended. In the year 1843, Charles Dickens was breathing great sighs of relief. It looked like he would not become another of England's countless poor people. He still didn't have much money, but he had become a successful writer. And now he was preparing to birth something that had been growing in him for a long time. It was an idea for a book that was growing strong because it was well fertilized by the rich dung heap of England's laws. Laws that made and kept people poor. The desolate, sprawling slums, the homeless children ravaged by diseases and stealing to survive, the starvation wages paid to workers so that a greedy upper class could live in luxury. That was Dickens' England. Dickens was made ready to write his next book because his England had written it indelibly, branded onto his brain what he needed to put onto paper. His father, put into debtor's prison in 1824, forcing Charles to get a job at the age of 12, where he worked 12-hour days for 3 years. All of his belongings were pawned to help support his family, who lived in the debtor's prison because they couldn't afford to live anywhere else. As you might guess, such things can injure a child badly. And ideally, they talk about those injuries later in life to rid themselves of the ghosts of that trauma. Dickens would talk about them in a big way because he was lucky and graced with a gift. With only 7 years of education, he knew how to write and to write well. He was a natural, as they say. I have to wonder if there was ever an English person better equipped to talk about his childhood made in England trauma. When he was just 19, he became a humble journalist who covered the news of the courts and of the English Parliament. There, he learned oh so well how laws favored only the rich and powerful. Then he got a job writing for a liberal, social reform-minded newspaper where he met other people who demanded justice for the poor. After these long day jobs were over, he worked long into the nights, writing his Pickwick papers and then his Oliver Twist. Books that brought him great acclaim and, most importantly, a big audience. Then he went to America in 1842, where he met the Unitarian Ralph Waldo Emerson, who helped nurture Dickens' already profound distaste for the Christianity of his day. After returning from America, Dickens wanted to see the worst of his country. He went to Manchester and witnessed the dreadful conditions of the manufacturing workers there. He also visited a school for homeless children. And it was called a ragged school. A ragged school because the children were so ragged and miserable. Dickens would later admit that it was this sight of those poor children that made him resolve to strike a sledgehammer blow for the poor. It seems some people are embittered by their unhappy childhood, and it fills them with hate, but not Dickens. He loved people. A loving heart, said Dickens, is the truest wisdom. It seems certain that it was this love of people that powered his pen and made his fictional characters so very well loved that they became the cast of a new gospel. In 1843, just 16 years after he left his home in the debtor's prison, Dickens began to write his next book. It would be about Christmas time. It would be about Christmas time in England, when everyone was reminded to celebrate Jesus, the Prince of Peace, while being all the while surrounded by greedy Scrooges who were nothing like that Prince of Peace. Dickens could not have known he was writing a mythic story, a new gospel. But that is what he did. The characters of his novella, Scrooge, Tiny Tim, and Bob Cratchit, were not just characters, they were archetypes that live in all of us. An archetype, you might reasonably ask. It's an uncommon word, but I think it describes something we know from common sense. The evil Scrooge archetype, or Scrooge consciousness, we might call it, is pure greed that cares nothing for anyone else. It lives in the dark shadow side of every person, and being fully aware of it is the one way to keep it at bay. It comes out of all of us now and then. It is part of being human. But the examples of the pure, full-time evil Scrooge consciousness are many. The Grinch, of course, is a clever variation of Dickens' tale. It is well loved because of its mythic theme of the birth of compassion from what seems to be nothing but hate. And here's a modern Scrooge in the flesh. A modern Scrooge who, unlike Dickens' Scrooge and the Grinch, has not found the light side of his Scrooge consciousness. Think of it. A country that professes to worship the living embodiment of the very opposite of Scrooge, Jesus the Christ, elected Ebenezer Trump to the presidency. Obviously, a lot of Americans are totally unconscious of their own dark side and therefore unable to see it when it is right before their eyes. Americans who are in total denial about their own evil Scrooge within do not even see the greed and fear in Scrooge Donald McTrump. Some think he is a rational guy who, like Dickens' Scrooge, just likes to fire a Bob Cratchit now and then. The difference is, Dickens and his character Scrooge had something happened to them. It took Charles Dickens just 6 weeks to write his Christmas ghost story. The story was indeed branded on his brain, ready to pour out of him. As the writing began in earnest, Dickens became engrossed in the book. He later wrote, as the tale unfolded, he wept and laughed and wept again. As he walked about the black streets of London 15 or 20 miles many a night when all sober folks had gone to bed. The writing of this sledgehammer blow for the poor was also his own therapy in which he was exorcising the ghosts of his own Christmas past. His character, Tiny Tim, was a part of Dickens and of his Scrooge, who were both wounded when they were young. The book, or now, Even a good Scrooge movie will make you weep, just as Dickens wept when he wrote it, and that was the point. There was a time, though, when Dickens thought that his Sledgehammer for the Poor should be a political pamphlet, which he intended to call An Appeal to the People of England on Behalf of the Poor Man's Child. But Dickens quickly realized that such a pamphlet would not have near the power of a good story, a story of pain and triumphs of life. He knew that a pamphlet would only be addressed to a person's intellect. But addressing medicine to an intellect, that was not the medicine that might heal England's and, incidentally, his own wounds. The something that must happen to change the greedy Scrooge, small or large in every person, is not an intellectual something. The path connecting us to the vast wisdom of the human unconscious, where scary ghosts truly lurk, is not through the reasonable intellect. Instead, it is through the heartfelt awakenings everyone has now and then, often on a cold winter's night, awakenings that tell us we need to make a few changes in ourselves. It is our own body minds that can gently, or not so gently, haunt us when we are unjust or unkind to others. Think of it. Our bodies, our minds know we humans are made to be loving and kind. This would be Dickens' so-called new gospel, even though it was exactly what the real Jesus taught in the old gospel. It was getting closer to Christmas, and at times it seemed Dickens' little book would never see the light of day. Shortly before he was ready to publish it, he had an argument with the publishers, and they refused to work with him. Dickens had too much hope for his book to let it die, so he used his own very limited money to publish 7,000 copies at the last minute. He published it on December 19th, and that first edition sold out in 4 days on Christmas Eve. By the end of the next year, 13 editions had been released. Most critics hailed the novella favorably, even enthusiastically, some calling it a new gospel. And yes, some churchmen wondered, where's the Jesus? Where is the Jesus in this supposedly massive Christ ghost story? Roll over John Calvin and all other theologians who taught that humans are originally Scrooge-ish and can never really change. And never mind that Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung would come 100 years later to take up where Dickens left off. Dickens' tale showed that something that rang true with nearly everyone, that salvation and Christmas are also about our own awakening, an awakening to the fact that we can be either an evil Scrooge or the absolute opposite, or somewhere hopefully in between. Humans have the free will to choose, and our inner, sometimes scary, but always wise spirits tell us that. Stave 4, the last of the spirits. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. When it came, Scrooge bent down upon his knee, for in the very air through which the spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. He felt that it was tall and stately when it came beside him, and that mysterious presence filled him with a solemn dread. He knew no more, for the spirit neither spoke nor moved. Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found that he could hardly stand when he prepared to follow it. Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any specter I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?" It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them. "Lead on," said Scrooge. "Lead on. The night is waning fast, and it's precious time to me. I know it is. Lead on, Spirit." Imagine living in a world where a daily dose of TV horror and gore has not desensitized you to the power and emotion found in a slice of life created by a good writer. The fans of Charles Dickens loved his Christmas book. And now we have our movies about Scrooge, about 100 of them, depending on how you count. But it's all too easy during the holiday season to watch one of those 100 video versions of Dickens' A Christmas Carol and think to ourselves, "Thank heavens I'm nothing like that Scrooge guy." That is usually true. We seldom, if ever, are like the pure evil archetype, and most of us do much, much better towards the other end of the spectrum. But all of us have our Scrooge moments, large or small. We all sometimes vacillate between the Scrooge and the Santa Scrooge. Like Scrooge, most of us have had our own ghostly visitations. Perhaps you have had a nightmare, a dream that scared the bejeebers out of you. And in the dream, and in your own bed, your knees are shaking just like you were Scrooge. It is no fun, but rest assured, it is as Dickens said. He has Scrooge say, "Spirit, I know your purpose is to do me good." It was the same Jung would say 87 years later when he wrote, "A still small voice in our conscience often says to us, something is out of tune." To take the power from the eternal Scrooge that dwells within all of us, instead of telling our dream guides, "You are a blot of spoiled mustard," we can say, "Spirit, lead on. The night, our life is waning fast, and it is precious time to us. Lead on, Spirit." We can only hope that more Americans will likewise be led by the spirits that show them deeply the depths of human greed. It seems our own country has as many problems as did England of Dickens' time. It is clear that most of those problems are caused by good old-fashioned human greed. It is a greed often rationalized by Scrooge's idea that supporting the poorhouses is good enough. Never mind coming up with an economic system that will keep the poor from happening. The modern-day Scrooges sit and count not only their coins, but their guns, and cannot be troubled to support simple laws that would save many a tiny Tim. The modern-day Scrooges count their money while the air gets thicker. But cleaning the air would make their pile of coins a little smaller, so they oppose clean energy development. What book can we write that will be the sledgehammer we use to strike a blow for those who have lost loved ones to guns and for those who suffer from an earth that is just plain too hot? We could write a pamphlet, but we already have. Yes, the facts are needed on pamphlets, but that's been done many times. I think the key, as Dickens discovered so long ago, is giving modern Scrooges an emotion-laden living dream right in their faces. It would be giving them true wisdom they cannot deny. A loving heart is the truest wisdom. When we support for one of 1,000 examples, mothers who have lost a child to gun violence. We are letting those loving hearts tell their moving stories, and that is more powerful than statistics. The emotion, the passion of injustice caused by greed is what Dickens delivered to his England, and that is what we can deliver to our country. Dickens' little Christmas book is often credited with changing the poor laws of England, but such claims are, of course, impossible to prove. But we know for a fact that he was the father of our modern day be kind and jolly because it's Christmas. Every time you feel good when someone says, or you say with feeling, Merry Christmas, or now, Happy Holidays, you are moved by the spirit of Dickens' Christmas past. When we give gifts to children from families who are poor, or send Christmas cards to people we love, and especially when we send Christmas cards to people we don't always love, when we do those things, we are doing the will of the writer, crusader, Englishman, Charles Dickens, who saw a way to make the world better. And so ends another holiday service about Charles Dickens and his tale of Scrooge. A tale that is filled with all the tragic, happy, triumphant drama that celebrates the birth and wisdom of Jesus of Nazareth. It is often read side by side with the Christmas story from the Gospel according to Luke. Most people, in their wisdom, don't even notice or care if they do notice that it isn't Jesus who saves Scrooge. And why should they? I have to believe that the real Jesus, a champion of the poor and the generous, wouldn't care either.
In this holiday season, throughout the year to come, and always in our lives, may we be filled with joy, sharing it always with others. In the spirit of sharing joy during this Advent season, we invite you to place your offering in the basket at the back of the church as you leave, or by an online gift at uflint.org. And thank you for all you give throughout the year.
May we be gentle with ourselves and with others as we do our best to navigate through the tricky shoals of December. May the dissatisfactions that are part of our lot be our companions, but not our masters, as we cross the holiday threshold. And may all the joys of the seasons be ours this time around.
And let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.